as one of the main characters of Kimetsu no Yaiba. Since his appearance, Zenitsu has been a humorous factor that creates laughter. He's the character that makes Kimetsu no Yaiba more fun, humorous and light-hearted. Although he is a swordsman who cries a lot and lacks confidence, but when watching all the paths he has taken, it is truly an inspirational story for many people who are not strong and doubt their own abilities. Let's learn about Agatsuma Zenitsu. Agatsuma Zenitsu is 16 years old, one of the 5 members who passed the Demon Slayer course exam. He is of average height, has fair skin, and large, downward-facing eyes. This makes him look quite cute and gentle. Whenever he is scared, his eyes change from light brown to yellow. Zenitsu has impressive short blonde hair that is cut square at the ends. However, this is not his original hair color. Before becoming a Demon Slayer, Zenitsu's hair was black, but it turned yellow when he was struck by lightning during his training. His outfit is also orange-yellow. Zenitsu wears a haori. It has a urokomon pattern combined with a leg wrap of the same pattern to create harmony. Don't look at his comedic moments or his weak fear and mistake Zenitsu for a carefree child who has been well taken care of since childhood. In fact, Zenitsu is an orphan. He didn't have a happy family filled with laughter like Tanjiro, or even his name embroidered on his diaper like Inosuke. He didn't know his parents, and never understood why they abandoned him. That's why when Inosuke said he was abandoned, Zenitsu said that the definition of abandoned wasn't accurate when applied to Inosuke. It was for him, a child who had nothing left, not even a name. Zenitsu's innocent words were actually a bitter reflection of his fate. Perhaps because of the lack of family affection since childhood, Zenitsu always wanted to have a wife, a family. So he was willing to rush into girls, but in the end, all love affairs were the same. He was abandoned. But that was not tragic enough. In his last love affair, Zenitsu borrowed a large sum of money for his girlfriend, and in the end, his girlfriend ran away with her lover, leaving Zenitsu in debt. Having gone through many things in the past, Zenitsu was an orphan, having to do everything by himself. However, happiness never seemed to smile on him. He was never loved, never treated sincerely. But no matter how many times he was deceived, Zenitsu was still Zenitsu. He was still gentle, kind and foolish, seeing only kindness in him. The former hashira Kuwajima Jigoro helped him pay off his debts and accepted him as a disciple. From then on, he began practicing swordsmanship with his remaining brother Keigoku. Jigoro became the spiritual support of his family and the one who brought light to his life. As for his older brother Keigoku, the relationship between the two was not good. But Zenitsu always showed respect for his senior and admired his great ambition. Keigoku also became a strong driving force that pushed Zenitsu to become stronger, with the hope that one day he could fight alongside Keigoku and perfect the 7th technique of his own lightning breathing technique. Throughout Zenitsu's previous life, whenever he did something wrong, people would say he was useless and leave. That's why he gradually lost confidence in himself, leading to the formation of the instinct to run away from all difficulties and dangers, so as not to hear criticism from others. But Jigoro was the one who believed in him, and no matter how many times he gave up or ran away, he never abandoned him. His words of encouragement motivated Zenitsu, although he was still quite skeptical and always denied his own worth or potential power. However, Zenitsu still listened to Jigoro and decided to take the Demon Slayer course entrance exam. This decision opened a new page in his life, leading him to his best friends Tanjiro, Inosuke and Nezuko. They became his teammates, the most trustworthy friends Zenitsu had ever met. They never abandoned or doubted Zenitsu for a minute. That turning point made him stronger and more confident, helping Zenitsu perfect the remaining part of himself, which is courage. But ahead, Zenitsu and his friends still have thorny challenges waiting. Before learning more about Zenitsu, please take a moment to like, share and subscribe to motivate me to make more videos. In the past, he was deceived many times, so people think that Zenitsu is quite stupid. But even though he is a bit naive, Zenitsu has very good ears. He can hear sounds from a very long distance, or even hear the sound coming from someone, recognizing part of their personality. So it is hard to believe that Zenitsu does not know that his girlfriend is deceiving him. Perhaps because he is too gentle and trusting, he deceived himself and hoped that the girl was sincere with him. But what he received after trusting was only deception. Unlike Inosuke, a child living in the forest, what Inosuke faces is the harsh life of nature. Zenitsu faces every day is the bustling life of human society. There is good and bad, however, in that society, he has nowhere to return to, a lonely child, lost and uncertain before the gossip and criticism of society. Words are weapons that severely damage a person's spirit. All the more he believes that society is right, and he is just a useless and incompetent person. Looking at the past that Zenitsu has gone through, it is hard to believe that he can still live honestly and altruistically like that. After being accepted as a disciple by his grandfather, Zenitsu has always wanted to live up to his grandfather's expectations. He even ran away from him so that he wouldn't have to survive the life and death training sessions, forgetting to eat and sleep, simply because the results he achieved were not as expected by himself, and only made him hate himself more. But all his efforts have never been in vain. And Jigoro has always been the one to pull him back, because he believes that inside him there is a hidden potential power. Most of the time, Zenitsu always shows a weak and fearful person before seemingly everything, hiding the true power that is sleeping deep inside him. In the battle in the maze of Kyogai, because he was too scared to see the demon, Zenitsu was frozen and couldn't run away, even though he told Shoichi to just leave him alone and run away, but the boy was determined to stay. Although he was extremely scared, Zenitsu absolutely could not let Shoichi die when his life was only a single digit. At this moment, when fear and responsibility to protect others fought in his mind, Zenitsu's second personality appeared. At this time, Zenitsu had become a completely different person, or to be more precise, he became the person he always wanted in his heart. A person with absolute power, strong and decisive. Every time this personality appeared, Zenitsu always surprised the audience again and again, when he continuously defeated countless extremely powerful demons without wasting too much of the audience's time. However, we still cannot forget the sense of responsibility that Zenitsu brought when he was still conscious. Although he was afraid and ran away from many things, every time responsibility called, Zenitsu was extremely determined to stay and fight to the end. He never backed down even though he knew how weak he was. He always put his trust in others, with Tanjiro, a person he had just met, relying on his hearing. Zenitsu did not hesitate to choose to trust and risk himself to protect Nezuko. This responsible act makes Tanjiro see Zenitsu in a different light, not just a coward who is always afraid. When he saw the face of the demon in the box, Zenitsu fell in love with Nezuko at first sight. Although he was determined not to enter the forest, and was very afraid of the forest, full of deadly sounds that Rui and the spider family brought. But when he realized that the person he liked was being pushed into danger by his foolish brother, Zenitsu did not think and rushed to save Crush. The love and desire to protect Nezuko was almost ingrained in Zenitsu's subconscious. When he was infected with Enma's demon blood on the Endless Train, Zenitsu still felt that Nezuko was in danger and came to the rescue in time. During the battle with the spider demon, we also saw the true desire in Zenitsu's personality. At the moment of death, he became the person he always wanted to be. He's stronger than anyone in the world and can save the weak, proving to him that the time he spent training him was not in vain. When faced with life and death, people will reveal what they desire most. Zenitsu does not desire a girlfriend, nor does he have any material needs. He only wants to make him proud and save people. After experiencing the battle of the spider demon, Zenitsu tries to become stronger despite still being quite scared. But he was able to go on missions alone. When it came to the battle in the red light district, he rushed into battle without hesitation or crying. Despite knowing that the demon standing before him was an upper moon demon. When he saw it bullying the girl, Zenitsu ignored the fact that he had been exposed and could be in danger, strongly confronting it and protecting the girl. No one is perfect and neither is Zenitsu. Zenitsu's self-esteem is not respected because he does not hesitate to show it by selling his daughter's tail or crying in every battle. However, Zenitsu puts his self-esteem in very trivial things. When he was sold to a brothel by Uzui Tengen at a super promotional price of 0 dong and was criticized for being useless, he was determined to become a hot girl of the brothel to take revenge on life despite his limited beauty. The humorous, shameless moments with his silly brothers have turned Zenitsu into a character that always brings us laughter every time he appears. Since meeting new friends, Zenitsu has truly found true love and friendship, fighting alongside them and ready to face danger without fear. The fateful encounter between Zenitsu and his friends gradually makes him have a different view of himself, of life, and gradually realizes his ideals in life. After each major incident, Zenitsu becomes stronger, and the fear inside him gradually disappeared unconsciously without him knowing. Although his mouth always said cowardly words, Zenitsu never stood aside from any battle, because Zenitsu's instincts and dreams always urged him to destroy demons and protect humans. Unlike Keigoku, he always thought that he was strong and had the right to look down on and trample on the efforts of others. But until the end, before standing on the line between life and death, it was still unknown who was stronger. And when facing death, Keigoku chose to bow his head and beg for his life before the demons. Keigoku was a coward. There was one thing he always criticized and despised Zenitsu for. One of Zenitsu's outstanding abilities was his super sensitive hearing. If he focused, he could hear even the smallest sounds. Thanks to that, he could detect danger at a very long distance. This ability allowed Zenitsu to clearly hear the sound coming from a person's heart, if he uses his hearing ability to its fullest. For someone with extremely sensitive ears like Zenitsu, each person makes a completely different sound. He can also use this ability to differentiate between the sounds of humans and demons. Even if they are disguised with a perfect human shell, the sounds they make cannot fool Zenitsu. He can also imitate any sound, even if he only hears it once. This super sensitive hearing ability seems to be what allows Zenitsu to fight while sleeping. Because when he sleeps, his eyes are closed. All information in battle emitted by his opponents is collected and processed by his ears instead of his eyes. After the life and death training, Zenitsu often possesses strength, reflexes, endurance, and stamina far superior to normal people. In the battle with Rui, or Daki, Zenitsu continued to fight despite the heavy injuries on his body. Another strength of Zenitsu lies in his incredible speed. We can easily say that he is one of the fastest swordsmen of the Demon Slayer course, possessing a moving speed far beyond that of a normal person and extremely flexible reflexes. Especially when using the Fire Thunder God, his speed is described as completely beyond human perception. Finally, we cannot forget to mention the important foundation for Zenitsu's power, the Thunder Breath, passed down from Jigoro. This is one of the 5 basic types of breath after the Sun Breath was lost. This technique helps to increase the user's strength and speed significantly. The Thunder Breath skill set includes a total of 6 forms, but Zenitsu can only use the first form, considered the simplest form. The fact that a swordsman could only use one technique of Nitsu initially made the demons look down on him. But even though he was not talented enough to perform the other 5 techniques. Zenitsu was still an extremely dangerous swordsman. He had trained just one technique to the pinnacle of the pinnacle. This technique was repeated by Zenitsu so many times that all the unnecessary movements were eliminated, making it an absolute perfect technique, and pushed it to a new level. Later he also successfully created the 7th technique, the Fire Thunder God, a technique that was exclusive to him. This creativity was only seen in swordsmen of the hashira level. The techniques we have seen Zenitsu use include the first, Zenitsu dashes forward and slashes at the opponent at extremely high speed. The movement of this technique can be compared to a lightning bolt tearing through the sky. Zenitsu has honed this technique to the point where it can be used multiple times in a row at once. It was 6 at first and later developed to 8 times in a row. The pinnacle of the technique is God Speed, when Zenitsu can utilize this technique to increase the speed of the first form to a further distance. However, he can only use this technique twice a day. After using it the second time, his legs will become useless. In the final battle against Musen, Zenitsu was able to use God Speed more than twice. The 7th form, Fire Thunder God, when used, his body becomes glowing with the aura of a fire dragon and lightning, giving him the ability to move at extremely terrifying speeds. Zenitsu will jump into the air and create a slash at a dizzying speed that leaves the opponent unable to react. And that's all you need to know about Agatsuma Zenitsu. In Kimetsu no Yaiba, there are many characters who, due to their living environment, have chosen to abandon their human nature and become evil demons. However, Zenitsu is an example of the choice to continue living honestly, maintaining his humanity, no matter how society treats him. Zenitsu still firmly believes in his own way of life. Following Zenitsu's journey, we realize that not everyone is born strong, not everyone is born smart, and not everyone is perfect. But as long as you don't give up, you will eventually reach success. So don't compare yourself to others. Focusing on doing well what you fear most is enough to make you a special person. What about you? If you are having difficulties or wondering about your abilities, take Zenitsu as an example. Thank you for watching the video. See you again in the next videos. See you again.